Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of A Measure of Passion. This podcast is a podcast that I'm going to be focusing on how passion enlivens us as people and also gives us the energy and desire to live a longer, enriched life and also leave a mark before we leave this journey that we're on. And I am so grateful to have with me today a colleague of mine, someone who's become a good friend of mine as well. And we share a lot of similar interests, which is why she is on this podcast. And so it's funny how life happens and you meet people along your journey. And then you think to yourself, there's a reason why the universe brought me into this space and time. And so I am grateful to know Nickole. She is a creator, a woman with a lot of different interests. Her life has been so full of different experiences. I can't even remember everything she told me. She's the creator, writer, and host of Woman I Am You podcast. And I have to tell you, I do love that title. It so embodies who you are and what you're trying to do. She's also a singer and songwriter. So when everybody who sees this video goes to check out her podcast, you will hear her beautiful voice and what she brings to personalize that podcast to herself. She is also, and we could spend hours just talking about stories from being a bold cheerleader, a love of all. And she is a wife and a mom of two wonderful, very talented boys as well. So with that, I introduce Nickole. Nickole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just excited to be here.
Well, thank you for being my first guest, as well as helping me shape the idea. Very few people will know this, but Nickole is actually the person who inspired me to go out on my own and do a podcast with my singular voice.
Yeah.
And she said, why not? If you want to do it, go ahead, do it.
That's right.
And so
Absolutely.
here I am doing it and with the person who inspired me to do it. And so, Nickole, tell us, um,
Yeah.
you've had lots of things happen during your life that has brought you to this moment. And so if you don't
Yes.
mind, tell us what your passion is and how you
Yes.
got here to this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on the show and for also allowing me to be able to share kind of like what my passions are, what's inspired me to be where I am today, and even moving forward, just looking forward to the future. So even as I share on the podcast, I was a young girl, and I always knew what I loved to do. I've always enjoyed dancing, singing, performing, and I've done some of that in my life. Obviously, being a Chicago Bulls cheerleader, I danced for local background groups and things of that nature. But there was a point in time that came where, which I'm sure many of you, where my parents said to me, okay, all of that's great and well, but you got to get a real job. And for me, I was a very good girl, listened to my parents, and that's what I did. I am and still am in corporate America. And so I just had been going on about my life and, doing what I thought was the right things to do, based on what parents thought, society thought, or even what I thought I was supposed to do. And then, I got to a point where it was just like, man, what am I doing? And who is this for? Um, I had somewhat of a traumatic event happen to me where I separated from my husband, but that was kind of the start of me reflecting back on my life, reflecting back on me, and trying to figure out what the rest of my life looks like. So I understood that a lot of my passions I buried, right? I didn't pursue necessarily dancing long term. I didn't pursue singing long term. I didn't pursue that long term. And so when all of this reflection started happening, I realized that I've probably lived maybe half of my life at this point, and I wanted to turn things around. I wanted to change things. I wanted to pursue my passions and what I loved and enjoyed doing. And as I began to talk to other women, I realized that I wasn't alone in how I was feeling. And so as I started talking to other women, having conversations, getting out into the world, that's when I realized, you know what? These are conversations we should be having all the time. These are conversations that we aren't, based on our fears, based on the things that hold us back, based on, the unknowing. And so that's where the podcast really bloomed. And it's called Woman I Am You just for that reason, because our journeys may look different, but we all want the same things. We want to be loved. We want happiness. We want to find joy. We want to be vibrant. We want life to be exciting. And through the podcast, what my goal is, which I feel the podcast is my passion, right? Because I've been able to talk to so many different women and hear their stories, understand, how they got to where they are, and really kind of see them bloom throughout their passions, which inspired me to continue to pursue my passions, which I believe will inspire and empower other women to do the same thing.
And so that raises a question for me, which is there's lots of mediums that you could have expressed yourself. You could be a writer, you could
Yeah.
be a poet, you could create, movies or other forms of creativity that, clearly you have lots of skills and talent. What is it about
Yes.
the podcast medium that you think allows you to meet those goals that you have?
Sure. I think it's a couple of things. I think one, the podcast is a way for me to express myself the way that I want to express myself. So that can include, excuse me, just from conversations or even me writing the song that I wrote for the podcast. I do the writing for the podcast itself. So I think it encompasses everything that I am. And a lot of the podcasts, yes, it is hearing other women's journeys, but it's also about me, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think what the podcast does, it allows me to express myself the way that I want to be seen and for who I am. And the hope is that when I bring on other guests to the podcast, that they feel comfortable being themselves, being vulnerable, and being able to share their true, authentic selves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the beauty of a podcast medium is that it's available to us without the barriers of technology or knowing people or money. I mean, you could start a simple podcast with very little resources because
Sure.
everything that's needed to do that is really within our grasp, given the fact that technology is so readily available. And so I do agree with you since both of us have a podcast and we both started it without a lot of technical knowledge.
Right.
And how to really, it's easy enough to figure out that we do it. I mean, honestly, young children do this, right? And so,
Right. Yeah.
anybody can do it and get our voices out there. The other thing I find fascinating is something else that you and I share is this our commitment to women. And so tell me why the focus on women. You could do couples, you could do a lot of other, guests on your show, but you focus on women. And I'm interested to hear about why women and why are their stories so instrumental for you?
Mhm. So, one, I am a woman. So I feel like a lot of my experiences we share together, right? The other piece is that I feel like as women, we are very powerful. And a lot of times we have been diminished within society, our views, what we're capable of doing, opportunities. And so I think that's really why my focus is on women. I think we're in a time where that's changing, where our voices are being heard. where we are having more opportunities and we're able to be who we are, be creative. We don't have to just be a mom, right? We don't have to just be a corporate person. We can be anything. We have the opportunity at this day and time to be and do anything. And so I feel like it's my duty as a woman in going through the things that I've gone through and understanding what I do now and pursuing my passions to be able to share this to hopefully inspire and empower other women.
And let me ask you this. I mean, do you feel that the people that listen to you or the people that you interview have to be of a certain level of experience or be a certain age or be in a certain place of their life to benefit from what you're sharing? Or do you feel after, you're on your second season, you're done with your second season and, they're dropping every week on
Yes.
Tuesdays, the listeners,
Yes.
check out Nicole's podcast on Tuesdays for sure. And I'm just wondering, is there a certain demographic that you're going after, or do you feel that anybody can take advantage of your message and the journeys of learning from other people's experiences?
That's an interesting question because obviously there are going to be certain people that gravitate to the information that I'm
Mhm.
sharing. So but at the same time, I do feel like there is information that anybody can take away from it. So I would say probably the demographic is anywhere from about 30 to about 50, 55, 60 years old. But I think that the information can also be for someone that's younger, right? Someone who hasn't had the experiences of life and that are they're looking to learn and try to figure out what it is for them and who they are. And so I do think that, but I also think because it is for women, a lot of times, people feel like, oh, as a man, I can't listen to it or this isn't for me. And I disagree with that because I've had people, friends, cousins, family members that have given me feedback that are men.
Mhm.
It said to me, you know what? I listened to the podcast and I could agree. Like I saw myself in that. I've seen myself smile through pain. And so I think it inspires and is information for everybody. But I think that, again, as women, we do have our own issues, challenges that we face. And so my target definitely is women. But I do think it's information that anybody can take away from it. And even if as a man you want to learn more about a woman and what they go through and their experiences, I think it gives you a great opportunity to get a sneak peek into that.
I absolutely agree. And matter of fact, I have told many men that if you want to understand your partner, wife, sister, daughter, grandmother, if you want to understand women, these kinds of podcasts allow you to have empathy and understand the differences. Because I think, and I have this conversation with my husband as well.
For
So
sure.
I agree with you and support that and encourage all men to listen to your podcast, my podcast, and the other podcasts that really center on women, because truthfully, they know their own experience. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, one of the things I love about this discussion about passion and why it's such a wonderful gift to us is that we know that it makes our life enriched and it gives us the desire to live as long as we can. There's just a lot of research, the blue zones. What does that feel like for you? And
Yeah.
how do you think this is going to make you, or has it made you want to live longer and continue having this voice? So tell
Yeah.
me about both of those things. What does it feel like? And how long is this going to help you live on for?
Yeah, so for sure. So I would say this. I want to start with a comment because I think this is really what ignited the fire for me. I was having a conversation with a young lady that I went to school with, and she owns a dance studio. And, I was kind of talking to her about dance and everything, and, maybe teaching at some point. And I was in a really, I was in a place where I was like feeling just tired, and I was upset a lot and just felt like I didn't know what to do, where to turn, and what was next. And so she asked me, she said, Nickole, why are you hiding your gifts from the world? The world needs you. And it was something about that comment that to me was like, oh my gosh, all these years I've been hiding myself. I've been hiding my passions. I've been hiding these things that not only help me to live longer and more fulfilled life, but can inspire someone else to do that. And so that was the start of it for me. And so I totally see a difference just from back then from where I was in my life to where I am right now. I think first and foremost, just taking the step forward to go through with an idea that I had, that takes a lot. And it takes a lot of courage for someone to do that. So I think it's just exciting for me because it's an accomplishment. Like, I did it. Like, I put that first foot forward, and just by doing that, I'm into the second season, and I have met amazing people from doing this. So it enriches my life. It helps me learn. It helps me get better. It helps me do better. It helps me have different conversations, even with my family. It helps me learn how to even have a voice of my own, right? Because a lot of times in my life, I try to just, hear people out and go along with. And I realized that by doing that, I was sacrificing myself and my voice. And so just having this experience, just putting myself out there, just, taking the steps forward, it has helped me so much in just feeling confident, right?
Mhm.
Confident to be able to do that, confident to say, I can accomplish that. I do have a vision. I do have dreams. They do matter. And I want to continue to walk in that path because that makes life so much more exciting. So
Absolutely.
that's
And
what
I
it's
can
been
just see
for
you
me.
talking about it, and I can just
Yeah.
see your excitement just just vibing off of you because you're so, just living that. Yeah, I could see how that has changed you because just talking about it just
Yeah.
lightens you up and just, it's obvious. It's obvious you love this. And
Thank
and I think that what our families, even though they have their best intentions for us, don't realize is that they are encouraging us to hide. And part of me feels like our families were worried about us being too bright,
you.
being too confident, because there's also a risk of what happens when you are too confident. And even
Yes.
if, I mean, to me as a podcaster, I feel like just putting my voice out there has reinforced the fact that I have something to say. Maybe only one person will hear it. Maybe it'll only make a difference for one person, but that
Yes.
one person also matters. And,
Yes.
I love it when the listeners reach out to us and say, hey, that really struck a chord with me. It's about your guest, it's about the chemistry between the two of us, and it's about us joining forces and that synergy to put our stories out there together that I think has been so impactful. And
Yes.
so, let me ask you this. What will be the next iteration, do you think? Like, where do you think that this passion could lead you? What are you open to? Let's put it out in the universe right here and now,
Okay.
Nickole. What do we want for the next step of your passion to look like? What will it lead to?
So I have so many, Joji. We've talked about this. Um, so I right now I'm taking singing lessons, right? Which is what kind of prompted me to write the song and actually sing the song for the podcast. So that can turn into something which I believe it can. I also I want to continue the podcast. So I want to have a third season, a fourth season, a fifth season. And so I think as I start to learn more, get better, meet more people, that turns into other things. I mentioned to you the third episode or third season will start to look more like resources for women, right? Like, when you need somebody to come to or talk to or advice on something, or even just, how do I get organized? Whatever that looks like. Now it's turning into me being a resource for people. So I'm excited about that. Um, Dancing is still going to always be a part of my life. So, that could look like me teaching classes or, having an app where people go to have fun and learn about dance or just enjoy. Um, so there's so many different things I've thought about speaking engagements because again, what better way to inspire people than to go out and talk about some of the things that we're talking about on the podcast and how to get better and do better together. So there's so much I want to do. The thing for me is the challenge for me is always time. And one of the things that I'm learning is that yes, you can do whatever you want to do, but you can't do it all at one time. So
Right.
trying to pace myself and still stay excited, even if it's just a little tiny bit by bit, right? That I'm starting to walk in those directions. But again, it makes life so much more exciting for me. Like I come from singing and I'm singing at home and my family's like, oh, there she goes again. But I think the other thing that it does is I also want my family to be proud of me, right? I've got boys that are, I have a young adult child and I have a teenage boy, and I want them to be proud of their mom. I want them to know that, don't let fear get in the way of anything that you want to do. And it's so easy to let fear stop you. I mean, I still have my moments where I'm like, well, do I really want to do this? Or where's the money going to come from to do that? But I realized that it's not about that more than it is coming up with the solution. Be the solution. And every time I have that conversation with myself, then I realize, okay, take a step back and figure it out. You are the solution. And if you can't figure it out, you get help. You ask other people that are experts or have a better understanding or had the experiences. And that's how you learn, that's how you grow, and that's how you get better.
And I also think, as we think about the future of where we're going, we're also role modeling to our children. You have two boys, I have a daughter, to show that, the best years of your life are not before 50 necessarily.
For sure.
There definitely is a very specific experience between 20 and 40 that we can't deny, right? You're
For sure.
young, you have energy, you're in school, you're getting your
Yeah.
career, you're meeting,
Yes.
your partner, and you're starting a different phase of life. But
Yes.
then both of us, I'm a little ahead of you. And so, like, I went through that empty nest period where my daughter moved on and went to school and then really never
Yeah.
came home. And
Yeah.
it's been out and about. And so now if we as women only think of our children as being our identity, then what happens to us when they leave? Which is what we're
That's right.
supposed to do. We're supposed to launch them. But I also think it's also an opportunity to launch ourselves into the second phase of our life
Absolutely.
and to find a way to keep going and actually maybe even accelerate that because now it's for us. We've
Mhm.
done everything we needed to do for our partners and our children,
Right.
for society. And now it's like, oh, this is life on my terms. Like now
For
I'm ready
sure.
to
For
do it.
sure.
And so I think that we also show our kids that, it's not because I do feel like a little bit of what you've, talked to me about your boys, their careers might be, their prime years might be certain years of their life, and they have to figure out what do they do after that.
For
And
sure.
what a great example as a mom to show, hey, this career, this new angle of my life didn't even start till I was well beyond, that time. And I
Yeah.
recreated myself, right? And that's what life is
That's
about. And I think that's what passion
that's
allows you to do is to continue reinventing yourself to be the person you want to be for the next 5 years or 10 years until it bridges you into your next thing. And
That's
that's
right.
where you're looking ahead and seeing all of that. I was listening to a podcast and um, and you can remind me of this. She's an actor, she's a singer. She was on the show Fame. Um,
Debbie
and
Allen?
pardon me?
Debbie Allen?
Debbie Allen. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So Debbie Allen was interviewed by um, Julia Louis-Dreyfus on a podcast I love now called Wiser Than Me. And Julia was asking Debbie, like, how do you do all the things that you do? You still, you have a school, you have a foundation,
Yes.
she listed all these things off. And what I learned from Debbie Allen in that interview was that the more passion you have, the more energy you have, and you will make time. But like passion and things, everything you're talking about, I'm envisioning you as going from singing to, maybe doing a video on dance and recording a podcast and writing your scripts. And you know what? That is leaving nothing behind when you leave this earth. You will have used up everything. And you know what? That's what I want. I
Mhm.
want, I don't even want ashes when I'm gone. I want nothing. I want
Right.
there to be just this memory of this person who gave it everything she had
Yes.
and left this legacy behind. And that's what you and I are doing, Nickole. We are leaving a legacy
Yeah.
beyond our children, right?
Um, I've said that a million times.
Yeah. And so for all of our listeners out there, please know if we can do it, if Nickole can do it, I can do it. We're not any more special than you are. You can
No.
go out there and do it, whatever fills your heart with joy and gives your life more purpose. And
Ah,
so I'd like to thank you, Nickole, for this beautiful conversation. And I know that we're going to do a lot independently and maybe together. And so
oh,
thank so much. I appreciate it once again. Just to reintroduce, so you can all look up her podcast. This is Nickole Ragsdale. She is the creator, podcaster, and just creative creator for a lot of different things. And the name of her podcast is Woman, I Am You.
yes.
So
Yes.
thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll join me again. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.